You can now hear Movie Heaven, Movie Hell on Stitcher. Stitcher is radio on demand. Listen anytime, anywhere. Stitcher is an award-winning free app that lets you listen to all your favorite shows, plus discover from 20,000 news, entertainment, and sports shows. You can also create your own custom playlists. Stitcher is available on iOS, Android, Nook, iPad, and in over 4 million car dashboards. It's on demand and it's on the go. No downloading, no syncing, no wasted memory. You can stream your favorite podcasts from Stitcher. Don't have Stitcher? Download it free today at Stitcher.com or in the App Store. And please leave us a review and rating on Stitcher. Thank you. Welcome to Movie Heaven, Movie Hell podcast extra, and tonight I am joined with I'm joined by Ben Woodiwiss.
Hi, Simon. Hi, everyone.
Hi Ben.
I love what you've done with this place. It looks great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ben's joined me to talk about script writing because he's a writer director.
Yeah. But I think the writing is kind of more interesting for people than the directing side of things. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here. We could come back and do a directing one, but I don't know. I think let's talk about writing.
Yeah. Well, I've known Ben for this must be at least 10 years now.
Yep, it's about that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we worked together first time on a trilogy of short films called Monologue Triptych, which comprised of Primero, Segundo, and Tercero.
Yep.
And originally you'd written those for somebody else, isn't that correct?
That's true, yeah. I'd written them for a musician who wanted to do some short films. I think the idea was that he wanted to get some short films done that he would do the music for. And in the end, he wanted to do something different. So I wrote Monologue Triptych, and then he changed his mind. He wanted to do a one-off thing instead of it was two short films. It was old Monologue Diptych back then. But then when it came to you, you thought it would work better as a trilogy, so we wrote that third part.
That's right.
Yeah. So instead he wanted to do this other thing which I wrote as well, and we shot a kind of lo-fi version of it to see how it was going to go, and then which went well, but then the final film never happened. So yeah, Monologue Triptych came to independent running.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because I was looking for projects that I could make that year because I was sort of hell bent to do a lot more projects than I had been doing. So I'd started off the year doing post-its, and then I did two test commercials called Jack and Jill, and then I asked you, and you said, "Oh, well, I have these two short stories,"
Yeah.
and I read them, and I felt, "Oh, well, you know." I like the character in it. You're not your normal, person that you would sympathize with him, but there wasn't anything sympathetic about him. And I thought, well, it would be a good idea maybe to have the third part where this guy had done such, bad things or
Yeah.
stupid things that there'd be some sort of karma to it, that some cosmic comeback. And the third part was about him dealing with the fact that his ex-wife was taking the kids away overseas and how he would deal with that.
Yeah. And that's where Ben Green came into everything as well.
That's right. Well, let's talk about the script writing, that third part, because I just sort of said the idea to you, and you actually went away and then
Yep.
and did it.
Yep. Do you know, I can remember so little about we're talking about 10 years ago now.
Well, not quite. We're
No,
talking 8 years ago.
yeah. All I remember about that was, so he had to be given pathos in that final part, and originally no, I'm not remembering anything that I think is gonna be very interesting for anyone. I think we just kind of, like, You just take that same character and just put him into a whole new situation, which worked well, I think. Yeah.
Okay. But I was just wondering because as we've been working together and stuff, I noticed there's a difference between when you're writing for, say, somebody like me and when you're writing for yourself. Because I'd noticed I think you do, from what I've noticed, that you've done things quite differently. I know that for a couple of scripts that you've written with me, there's always like a sort of character. It's like one of the characters will have this thing where he either learns how to play a game or he learns something new. Like remember the hunting script where the one of the guys goes, "How can we find our way back?" And another guy tells him, "Well, if you walk backwards, then you'll familiar."
Right.
And
Yeah.
I've never the work that you've done.
Yeah.
I've never seen that kind of trait in anything.
Huh, that's interesting. I do like learning things, and I do like games. Um, so you're gonna see more gameplay as it happens in the future.
Yes.
Um, yeah, that's an interesting thing. I don't know why am I doing that. Not sure. I guess like part of the whole like screenwriting thing is that you're making a game for people to play along with. I read this thing that Lars von Trier said years ago about how for him making films was just like when he was a kid and he was playing a game and getting everyone to come along, come and join in Lars's crazy game. And kind of script writing is kind of like that. You're kind of setting out all the rules for everyone, and it has this kind of game-like quality to it. And I guess also, I think it's really important that people learn things in the story, that they don't just go through a series of actions or try to achieve a goal, that they have to learn something about themselves or about the world around them at the same time.
Yeah, I mean they normally refer to that as the character's arc.
Hmm.
Yes, I remember doing a course once where the woman who was running it was saying about that in in a scene that she'd asked us all to write, she looked at the one I wrote and said, "Well, this character has no arc within the scene." And I'm like, "It's a fucking scene."
It's true, but at the same time, in defense of this lady who I don't know,
Yeah,
I always think that each scene in a film should contain something that you should learn something in that scene. So you should learn how someone feels or where something is, or everything should be pushed forward a little bit. And you kind of mask that, you hide it away. You don't want lazy exposition and people, suddenly sitting down and going, "Well, today's the day my father died 10 years ago. So it's an important night for me." That kind of thing doesn't really fly. But you have to. I do think every scene there should be something that you get a little window into what someone's like, or things move on a little bit. I don't think it should always be character arc stuff at all. But every scene for me is a moment to teach you a thing, at least one thing, and then move on. Maybe that's what she was talking about, but all this talk of rules is so boring at the same time.
yeah.
The whole save the cat thing. Like everyone is now following this save the cat formula.
For those who don't know, and actually I'm not too sure about what's Save the Cat.
Okay, hold on a second. I can't remember the name of the guy who wrote the book.
Oh,
Uh,
is this to do with a story by what's his name?
exactly. What's his name? His name is Blake Snyder, as we
All right,
all
no, it's
know.
not the one I'm thinking of then.
No, not that story guy.
No,
Um,
okay.
Blake Snyder. He wrote this book called Save the Cat, a book about screenwriting, and it lays out this formula that you follow if you want to have successful scripts.
Ah,
And he's not wrong. You watch iRobot or Independence Day or whatever. They are all hitting these notes all along the way. But um, it just means that everyone is writing the same script all the time. If everyone's following the same set of rules, you're going to end up with the same script over and over and over again. And you see this all the time. You go to the cinema, you watch a movie, and you're like, "Yeah, it was all right. I give that a 6 out of 10." And it's everyone's hitting these notes all the time. And yeah, it's a little. I don't know. I'm not really one for all these big important rules. I have my own rules I impose on myself, and then if someone shows me their script and asks for feedback, I'll come at them with some useful feedback, I hope, but I try to veer away from these things that people say all the time, like mantras, like "show it, don't say it," and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, people need to talk sometimes. I apologize, but you have to have characters say something. Kind of everything being visual.
Yeah.
Um, Otherwise, you end up making a Terrence Malick movie, which is great, but sometimes you don't do that. Sometimes you do something else.
Well, that's it. I mean, if it's fine for Terrence Malick because everybody knows that he is and that's what they're expecting. But if you're, Joe Blow, then they're expecting it to be more run of the mill, more sort of fitting to a formula.
Exactly. Yeah, and you see a lot of this. I do a lot of things where you like competitions and you write for things and stuff, and people come back at you with the most asinine feedback you've ever seen. It's just people saying the rules over and over and over again in this really kind of tedious way. And to give you an example,
Okay.
I don't normally read scripts, but I read a Paul Schrader script recently for a
Okay.
film that I can't remember the name of. But Paul Schrader's script ended up being changed. That's the
Right.
important part. But I read the Paul Schrader script, and I'm about 5 pages in, and I've already seen 12, maybe 13 different rule breaks. That if I copy that out word for word and sent it in for a competition, I can tell you exactly what kind of negative feedback I'm going to get back. But this is Paul Schrader writing a movie which is happening, and a lot of the rules that people talk about just don't apply in that situation. The big one is like describing stuff that you can't see. So,
Ah, yes.
he walks into the room and starts thinking about his wife. You can't see that. So, you're not allowed to do it. And people will jump on you as soon as you show them a script that contains stuff like that. And there's Paul Schrader tapping it out in a movie that got made. So,
Yeah, I remember I put a script of mine up on Trigger Street
yeah,
years ago, and somebody wrote that exact
yeah,
words. You can't write down things that you can't see.
yeah. And I see it all the time. I see people do it all the time. And is it bad? I mean, I don't do it anymore because it's one of my own personal rules. And if someone who was like 17 came to me with a script and showed it to me, then I would mention that, I guess. But I don't know. I just presume other people they've got something else going. You have to, like I was saying with the save the cat thing, you want to make things your own. You want to have your own style, your own way of doing stuff. If everyone's just doing the same things all the time, then there is no your own style, your own. It doesn't exist because you're just following Blake Snyder's rules.
Well, exactly. I mean, we recently spoke about Christopher Nolan and Memento,
Hmm.
and the thing is, if it had been made by anybody else, it would probably have, been very linear, and it would have started from the end and finished at the beginning
Yep. I mean,
instead of the other way around.
yep. You can watch the boring version of Memento right now because Blindside, the TV show. I don't know if you've seen it. I think it's NBC.
Right.
Show about a lady who has amnesia covered in tattoos, and then week by week they decode one of the tattoos, which is a clue, and then follow it up and find out what it all means.
Yeah.
And
Well, they're also planning to remake
they
Memento.
are remaking Memento, which I think is a waste of time because Blindside, the TV show, is already showing you that you should drop this like a hot potato. Because if you just play it straight, it's just really, well, I don't know. The Blindside in particular is astonishingly dull. It's really, really by the numbers stuff, and it goes to show what could have happened with Memento if it hadn't been done in that kind of broken structure.
Exactly. I mean, that was part of the game, wasn't it?
Yeah, 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 that is exactly. Again, writing scripts is a game for people. It's a game for your audience. You want them to sit there, and you want them to. I think you want them to take part and to be sitting there and trying to work out what's going on and playing their own little game in their head. And then when you reveal stuff to them, either they get this kind of satisfaction of like, yes, called it, or they're like, ooh, I didn't see that coming, but everything I needed was there. More fool me for missing out on it. That kind of stuff is good. You don't want like, what's the other Christopher Nolan one? The Prestige.
Yeah.
There's a good game going on for you. You're trying to work out what's happening all the time, and I think the same year you got that, The Illusionist, is it? That
Yes. Yeah.
Edward Norton film.
Yeah.
And The Illusionist throws a big fat cheat at you right at the end. It does something that couldn't possibly have happened. You were paying attention and following the rules. It's kind of like, what's that French film? Haute Tension? High Tension?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh god, that yeah, I hate high tension.
Everybody does because of that enormous cheat it
Yeah,
throws. Like, the
yeah.
film is fantastic, and you're with it all the way up until the last 10 minutes, and then they cheat you, and you've been sitting there trying to work out what's going on. You're looking at the clues, piecing it together, making a little jigsaw in your head, and then 10 minutes before the end, they go, all those pieces were a joke. We played you." And The Illusionist does the same thing. That's kind of why The Prestige works better as a film than The Illusionist.
Well, I also think as well that Illusionist is more of a love story than it is a psychological thriller
Yeah.
about obsession.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But they do this kind of like, "What's going on?" game.
Well, yeah, yeah. I think that's just off the time as well, because I mean, how many films were there around at the time with twists?
That's true, that's true. Yeah, but its twist is horrific, and a big CGI magic trick as well. Like, they go on about how they got, I think, Ricky Jay to come in and work with Edward Norton on his, sleight of hand, but then the big magic trick is the CGI tree growing. Outrageous.
I have to say I can't remember The Illusionist that well, so I
I was
can't
watching it
remember.
through a wall of rage, hating every second of it. What is this cheap imitation of The Prestige? I'm not even that crazy about The Prestige, but it made me love The Prestige all that much more.
Yeah. Now, I mean, we were talking earlier about sort of people looking at your work and sort of giving you advice and stuff, but I don't know if you've experienced this where I think somebody sent me a script or something, but I remember they sent me the review of the script that they had paid a professional scriptwriter to read.
What,
And
a review of one of your scripts?
I don't think it was mine. No, I
Okay.
think it was somebody else's. But I remember them kept bringing up Pulp Fiction.
Uh-huh.
And I remember reading this and thinking, if you had got your hands on Pulp Fiction, you would have told them to change it.
Absolutely. Pulp Fiction
Ye-
doesn't show you anything. It tells you everything.
Yeah,
Uh,
but I mean, from the fact that, like having John Travolta die in the middle and then reappear at the end.
well, that's an interesting. I know a fact about that story.
Yes.
That's, Quentin Tarantino took it to. What's the name of the producer?
Oh, the Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, Harvey. He took it to Harvey Weinstein. He goes, It's going to be a comeback vehicle for John Travolta. It's going to be great." And then Travolta, like, Weinstein doesn't read the whole thing, but he gets the kind of the pitch of it, and he hates the fact that John Travolta dies. Absolutely hates it. Doesn't see this film flying whatsoever. And then Tarantino goes, "Well, no, because at the end of the movie, Tarantino's there. Travolta. Can everyone have different names, please? Travolta is on screen at the end in a flashback." And Harvey Weinstein stops and he's like, "Oh, so you mean he's alive at the end?" And he goes, "Well, no, he's not alive. It's a flashback, but he's on screen." And Weinstein's like, "Oh, well, that's fine. That's fine. Go for it then." So what Weinstein was fine with the idea of Travolta dying midway through, as long as you see him at the end, because then you're left with that kind of the end of Pulp Fiction leaves you feeling kind of upbeat
Yeah.
as they kind of walk off, and you're not dwelling on the fact that Travolta's dead and some other people are dead as well, aren't they? It's a
Well,
long
Pulp
time.
Fiction is a film that I have watched in chronological order. I have seen that on YouTube,
Oh,
and
my nerd alert is flashing. Hold on.
and yeah, it doesn't quite work so well
Hmm.
because the final shot is of Bruce Willis driving off, doing the whole "Zed's dead, baby, Zed's dead."
Yeah, have you seen Memento in chronological?
No, no, that I can figure out what that's going to be like, and I wasn't interested.
I wouldn't mind, but yeah, I know what you mean. It's interesting about the Pulp Fiction thing. But yeah, sorry. So yeah, this guy would have given negative feedback to Pulp Fiction.
Oh god, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, but it's easy to sort of after the fact say, oh yeah, well, you know, in Pulp Fiction they did this, this, and this because it made a lot of money and stuff. But when you're given a script it's quite easy to sort of tear it apart.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'll go to my grave saying this, is that you need to break the rules in order to push things forward a little bit, and when you're doing that and you're presenting it to people, all they see is rule breaking, and they don't see the potential for how things can be pushed on a little bit further. When someone else breaks the rules and it works, then everyone starts looking at that thing as another way of doing stuff, and it
Yeah, it becomes another rule.
yeah, and it drives me bonkers that people won't wrap their head around the concept of breaking the rules in the first place, or even just a teeny weeny little bit, just a tiny bit, to be interesting. They'll want to just follow those rules all the way down, especially writers. So much.
Now, as somebody who's made films out of your scripts, Ben, how
Oh
do
yeah,
you feel when somebody changes something in the script that you've written?
absolutely fine. The whole when I'm writing scripts for other people, I'm writing scripts for other people. They're not my things at all. And I think that if you're the kind of writer who gets protective and you start fighting your corner and stuff, I don't see the point, because you're not the person who's going to have to bring everything to life. You're not, you write the script and then you're done. That's it, feet up. Someone else is going to have to go through months and months of hell trying to bring that script to the screen. And I don't think there's if something was going to be like it's got to be really negative. I mean, it's got to be really negative for it to be worth mentioning. I mean, yeah, I can't even imagine what it could be. But I say just go with it. The person making it has a better they've got everything in their head, and I think you've got to just make those changes or have them make those changes.
Well, that's right, because I remember calling you up when I was in the middle of doing Blood and Roses and asking you what you thought about me making one of the characters in it involved in a certain crime
Yep,
that
yep,
happens within
yep,
the film,
yep,
and you were happy about it.
and it works really well.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it just makes everything a lot richer. And I think often these kind of ideas come to you when you're in the thick of it and when you're shooting. And if you were to have an idea and think, "Hey, how about we do that?" And then you've got the writer go, "No, no, you can't change a word." That's just yeah. I think that I've got a very kind of fluid, flexible attitude towards filmmaking, and that I don't think that the script is the final film. I think that once you're in there doing stuff, you can find more interesting ways of doing things. Even table reads don't display this.
now, have you been on the receiving end of a writer s- telling you not to change their work?
Yes, 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 I have. Yes, yes.
Not going into much detail, but how did you feel?
Um, Frustrated again because of everything I said. The writer doesn't understand. I mean, not every writer. I'd hate to think. I'd hate for people to think that I hate writers. Simon just extracts the line, "I hate writers," plays it on a loop. Um, but a writer has to get down with the fact that they are just one of many people involved in the process. Because you're making the thing, you need to make pictures of it in your head, and you have to work out a way for everything to work. And sometimes that involves changing things, and you need to have that flexibility. And if a writer comes back to you with inflexibility, um, it doesn't make them look good. I don't think they're terribly professional. I think filmmaking is collaborative. You have meetings, you discuss things, you bend to other people's will sometimes. Sometimes you're fierce on things and you're like, no, we need to do it this way. But it's a very much a give and take kind of thing. It's like you're in this huge relationship with many, many people, and you all need to be giving and taking together. And when writers don't want those changes made, I think they're not seeing the big picture at all. They're just looking at their one small part of everything and not looking around at everything else. Does that sound mean?
No, but I mean, we've all worked with writers who they give you the script and then you go to them. Oh well, I'd like to change. No, can't. No,
Yeah.
no. Well, no. I mean, I'll give you a good example. I mean, we're filming in September, and no, sorry, October, and the actress who was in the film had problems saying a line of dialogue, so we changed it. And it was because she just couldn't get her tongue around the words. It happens.
Yeah,
I've seen it happen many times, and I've been one for saying, well, what works for you? Because at the end of the day, for me, it's all about what the words mean, not what the exact words are.
absolutely. And if words are difficult to say, that's probably not great. Like, Harrison Ford in Star Wars. You can write this stuff, but you sure as hell can't say it. Um,
But yet they do.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, they get it all out, all those parsecs and everything.
Yeah.
No slips. Yeah, no, and there's a good example of this in Blood and Roses, I think, where Kane John Scott
Yep.
delivers a line which is slightly different to what it was on the page, and I can't remember if that was a misread or an improv or just changing it a bit. Works a lot better. Works a lot better than the line I wrote. So,
Do you remember what line it was? Or what scene?
yes, I do. It is. Well, I need to get it right, don't I? It's him coming into the bathroom,
Ah, yes.
and he.
I know the one
What
you're
does, what does he say? Because I've got the two lines mixed up.
was it he goes, you should be in bed, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's it. You should be in bed. And then what I'd originally written was something like, "You shouldn't be up,"
That's it, yeah.
but "You should be in bed" has this kind of like, it's advice, but at the same time, it could be some kind of order as well, and an "I know best" kind of thing, and it had loads more going on for it than whatever I'd written. You shouldn't be up. Some kind of rubbish. Yeah.
Well, it was just sort of his delivery as well, because he does kind of appear out of nowhere. You don't see him turn up. He's just there,
Yep. Yep.
and she's quite distressed. And he says that line, and then um, he sees that she's in distress and sort of comforts her, and is kind of confused of what's going on.
He does eventually, but he delivers that line like a
Mm.
murderer,
Yes.
like an absolute cold-blooded killer. That's how he comes across there. And that for me is a really good example of a small change that makes everything better. And do you know how that change came about?
Well, it wasn't an instruction by me.
Mhm,
I know that Kane and Marisha would go off and they would rehearse together
mhm.
without me being there, which slightly annoyed me because I felt that I should really have been in, those kind of rehearsals.
Yeah.
But they would go off, and so it may have been something that came up, or it could have been just that it was a decision that Kane came up with at the time.
Well, it worked.
It
Worked.
worked, yeah.
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 Important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember we changed the biting scene, the scene where Marisha's character gets bitten, because I do remember how that was in the
That was
script.
a bit rude, wasn't it? Yeah.
No, 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 not that bit. No, no. If anything, it was a bit cheesy. It was like, was it Seth tips her down, looks at the fire comes alight
Oh,
and the
yeah,
fire
yeah, yeah, yeah.
bites, and then he looks at her and then bites her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yet, in the film, it's a lot more saucier.
It is. Yeah, I remember actually that bit playing out in the film and thinking, I didn't write this. It's a bit rude, but that's good. I think it worked.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was Ben Green and Marisha Kay came up to me and they said, "Well, this scene we have some ideas, and would you be willing to listen to what we have to say?" And they told me, and I said, "Well, are you prepared to do that? Because it's not me who has to perform that. I'm quite willing to shoot that."
Sounds great.
And
That's what
and
you never know how far people are going to go with something
yeah,
as well.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, go on.
But no, I was gonna say there was a scene that was in on the script was far saucier, which we changed. Just because I think of location.
I remember that bit. It was cold, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Shooting in Cornwall in November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably better that never made it. That bit was a bit rough. Yeah, yeah.
I don't think many people know this, but we were sort of collaborating together on a feature script for a year before we finally settled on Blood and
The
Roses.
Refuge, yeah,
Yeah, The
The
Refuge. Yeah.
Refuge is a great script. Yeah, I really liked that. There was a lot of, I mean, that was developed. Then we got to,
Mm,
like, draft 26 or something by the end of it. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, that was a very, very long process. It was kind of a surprise, in fact, because, well, there was The Refuge, and then there was, I forget the title of it.
Oh, it was In the Valley of the Shadow of the Darkness.
That's right. And then there was Blood and Roses, and I
Then there
think
was Blood and Roses. Yeah.
In the Valley went through like 8 redrafts or something,
It did. Yeah.
and then Blood and Roses was just bang, go, go. Like, as
Yeah.
soon it was like, "Oh, whoa, what happened? Where's draft 26?"
Well, I think what had happened with The Refuge was that we got it to such a point that I couldn't afford to make it
Yeah, yeah.
with what was on the page.
I mean, it's a small cast.
Yeah,
That's the upside of it. There's not many people in it, but that it's that final act, which gets a bit practical effectsy. Uh,
but very practical effects.
very. If there is a practical effects person listening to this who has a huge amount of body parts, wants to use them in something, the refuge is waiting. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean also as well that location
yeah,
that wasn't available where we were filming because we were always going to be filming at that location,
yeah. And
and
there was no barn.
no.
Yeah, there was a kind of gamey aspect to the refuge as well. Actually,
Mm,
there was that thing. There was something with his hand. He gets taught how to not feel pain or something. It's been a long time since I read the refuge,
no,
but there's a bit
no.
where something gets stuck through his hand. Do you remember this?
I think you might be thinking of another script because um, th- there's a whole thing where he gets cut up.
Yep. But before that bit, there's
No.
he's lying in the bed and he's hurting, and one of the people in the house teaches him that there's a way that you can do stuff without hurting. She takes a hat pin and sticks it. Yeah,
Oh, okay. All right. Now I remember it.
yeah.
God, it's been a while since I read the script of The Refuge.
And then he gets kind of taught this whole no pain thing, which he thankfully forgets for the last third of the movie. Otherwise, he'd be all right. Um, but I remember really liking that. And I actually, unbeknownst to you, I sent the refuge to someone else for a quick kind of feedback session.
Oh, right.
And they loved that bit. They absolutely loved that bit. They wanted to see more of hat pins going into people.
Okay.
I don't know what.
What did they make of the rest of it?
I can't remember. Really, don't- don't-
They just loved the hat
they
pin
loved
bit.
the hat pin bit. They really did. Um, I could really. No, it was a long. I mean, this is pre Blood and Roses. This is a year before Blood and Roses.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
yeah. But there's been loads of scripts that the general public don't know about. There's the Refuge, in the Valley. There was the Hunting Party.
That's right, yeah. Although that didn't really get to well, it got to half script form, wasn't it?
Yeah,
You got about halfway and you're like, well, I can't I don't have the time really to be working on
uh,
this, so I'll give this to you and then
yeah,
if you want to find somebody else to complete
yeah.
it.
Time is the time is the killer. Time is the little death. Um, just trying to find time to get everything done is maddening, absolutely maddening. Um, but yeah, yeah, that is a true fact. And there's another one now. Yeah, with
But
more time request.
but I mean, the thing is though, I don't know if it's the case anymore with yourself, but I remember you banged out Blood and Roses within a weekend.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can still do that if I get the time. Then I can still um, get them done. There's a script which I wrote recently, which I wrote in 3 days. Um, and time is not the important thing. It's got to be good as well.
Yeah.
So what I do if I'm going to do an intensive thing like that, I'll spend a good long time thinking about it. That's an important part of it. So the worst thing is you sit down to a blank page and you go interior, nightclub, evening, and then you go, well, now I don't know. Um, where do I go from here? I don't know. So I've got to think it through in its entirety, and I've got to have my, let's say it's 30 scenes. I've got to know all those 30 scenes. And I've got to know how you go from scene 18 to scene 19, what that transition is. And I've also got to know if which later scenes call back to earlier scenes and that kind of thing. You've got to have it all in your head first. So I'll write down like bullet points of everything that happens. I'll write down little snatches of dialogue that I like, and then you sit down and then you start fleshing it out. And yeah, that's how you can write a whole feature script in one go in a busy weekend or something. I've done it a few times now, actually. It's always a bit stressful, but you can get it done. You just need to find that block of time when no one's going to be harassing you or asking you to do stuff or whatever, and it's tricky.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much the same actually. Especially the shorts I've written. Um, I tend to sort of think them out, and then once I've sort of got a complete picture of it, then I'll sit down and write. Because otherwise, I will sit there and I will look at the blank screen, and
Yep,
also I will, do other things. I'll go on the internet and do this, and so
yep.
it's kind of like it does have to put like a fire in my belly to sort of to write it, and
Exactly, and then, like, with the best will in the world, as much as you've thought about something, you'll reach a point where you're just not sure how to move from one bit to the next bit. Like, even if you know what the next bit is, you can't tidily connect these 2 things together, and that is something that you have to focus on. And then, like, often, you'll probably like, we've all spoken to people who've got a great idea for a movie,
yeah.
and they'll tell you their great idea for a movie, and you're like, "Yeah, this is a great idea. Why don't you write it down?" Because it's difficult, and because turning your idea into tedious words on a page is just it's quite an arduous process. There's It's hard, and you have to focus on what you're doing, and you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying. I mean, I tend to do myself what I call the shit draft,
Yeah, yeah,
which is I'll just write. So I've got the idea in my head, I've got the characters, I kind of know what they're gonna say, what they're gonna do, and I'll just write and I'll just put it on the paper, and I won't care too much about the explanations or the descriptions. I will just sort of kind of concentrate on the story and the dialogue and stuff because I can. And then once I've got it all written down, and I will look at it and go, "Oh God, this is terrible." But then I've got something to work with.
yeah, exactly. No, and having everything done is the most important thing. If you take your time, if you sit down and you spend one evening creating one page, and then the next evening you'll create the second page and stuff. That's the recipe for never ever finishing what you're doing, because you'll run out of steam. And getting that first draft out is what counts. Once that's done, you can then go back to the beginning, start going through it, get vicious. Imagine that it's written by someone you hate, and start making changes all over the place. But you have to get that first draft done. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know. Are you ever going to finish it? Possibly not.
Well, I always get to a point where it's kind of like, I got to get make to make this now because I could just sit there forever changing it. It's like with when I'm editing as well. I'll get to a point where it's like I could keep carry on playing with this, but I'm more or less happy with it,
Yep, yep.
and it's time to move
Yeah,
on. Yeah.
everything needs to be abandoned at some point. Otherwise, you would never finish anything. You got to just get to a stage where, yeah, okay, that's it. It is in inverted commas finished, and time to move on to the next stage. Because yeah,
Yeah.
you could tinker forever.
Oh god, yeah. Oh god, yeah. I mean, I'm sort of because of with Mon Love, where I'm making a feature film via a lot of short stories,
Mm.
and so I complete as I go along. I complete each short story before shooting the next one, or try to as much as possible. And you could I keep going back and slightly play with things.
You know that writer's thing about write your first draft, put it in a drawer, and don't look at it for a few months, and then come back to it, and then make your changes. I always think that that whole argument is a little bit bunk because you change over the course of time, and your taste in stuff starts changing. So you're always
It's true, but also it can give you a bit of perspective as well. I know in the Stephen King book about writing,
uh
he says that. But the thing about Stephen King is in those 3 months he's writing another book.
exactly, right? Whereas most people, they write one thing, they put throw away, and then they're just thinking about that thing in their drawer the whole time. I really should go back to it. And doesn't. But yeah, but you will just, I think you will just change and your taste will change. Like, you'll look back on films you made years ago and you'll think, "Oh, no, why did I cut there? Why not there? What was wrong with me? Why would I do this?" And
Years ago,
years and years ago.
just watching it, just once you've. I mean, I think it's one of the reasons why I find it quite difficult sometimes to watch my own work, because you do sit there and you go, "Oh, why did I cut there?"
Exactly.
And then the thing is, you can't remember the decisions you made at that time.
But you're a totally different person back then. And
Well, it's not just that. I mean, it's also the fact that there's a reason. Sometimes there's a reason why you cut there, and you're
oh,
watching it
yeah,
and you're going, "Why did I do that?" And you forget the reason why. Do you forget the reason that maybe there wasn't a you know maybe you were covering up a mistake,
absolutely. That's the very, very
or
last frame you could use before something
exactly, or
fell over.
you ran out and so you have to cut to another
Yeah,
take, or
yeah, yeah.
there's hundreds of different reasons why you decide it. And so I'll say this to people, is that if there's a Q&A and you ask somebody a question, don't point out what you would have done, because at the end of the day you weren't there. You wouldn't make the same
No.
decisions that this person would make, so you telling them how you would have made the film different is not going to help anybody.
Awful when people do that. What they don't understand is that when you start a film at any stage of it, like in screenwriting or the actual making of it, you're faced with like 10 million different pathways that you can go down. And what you have to do is you choose one of those pathways and then you go down that. And each of these pathways then branches off as it goes on. And every time you come to a junction, you have to choose which direction to go. So when you're showing someone the final film, that final film is the result of a huge number of choices which you've made for good reasons. So when people come in with the "I would have done that" kind of thing, it's like, yeah, well, you didn't know what the options available were, and you're not choosing the route that I'm going on. So just take the film for the choices that I made rather than the imaginary choices that you would have made.
Yeah. I mean, and I have to say, it's worse when I've had like advice from friends saying, "Oh, maybe you should have put a close up or something in there." It's like,
Yeah,
well, dude, I didn't have time to do a
yeah.
close up.
That kind of, it's difficult to give people. I've done a lot of this, giving people
Mm.
feedback with films, and you can't come at it with magic land suggestions. You have to go with what you're looking at on the screen. So you don't say, put shots in here which maybe you don't have. I have no idea. You take a look at the film as a whole, and you go, okay, well, maybe trim that bit, maybe use that bit instead of that bit. You just look at the existing material in front of you instead of introducing magic solutions. Problem.
Exactly, because I mean, not many people have a budget to do reshoots or anything.
Hell no. Not even like ADR.
Yeah.
Um, Although fixing stuff with ADR is the devil's business. I'll go down that route. Um, but yeah, you just, if you're going to give people good advice, it has to be based on what you're watching. It's not based on imaginary stuff in your head. Yeah, put this stuff that you don't have into the movie. That's not useful at all.
That's it. Well, I mean, part of being like no budget filmmakers is you have to make do with what you have.
Hmm.
So you turn every negative into a positive.
Exactly, and that's part of the whole choice
Yeah.
process. You're going down all these pathways. You're making choices. You're choosing things based on what's available to you and what's the best possible choice for you to make at that junction. And people come into it cold at the end, don't see that. They just see, I don't know what they see. They've got this imaginary thing going on in their head of how things should be. It would have been much more interesting if you'd made the film a completely different film. Yeah, thanks.
Well, do you remember this podcast that reviewed the feature film, and they kept on going on about how bad the script was?
Oh,
You remember?
yeah. I'll be honest. Before making voodoo dolls of those guys, I turned this off, so I didn't hear the whole thing. Um,
Oh yeah, I mean, are they a sort of?
did they all die in a horrible accident?
I don't know. I don't. I don't think the podcast is around anymore.
That's
But
a shame. It was
it's a
they
shame,
were
isn't
great
it?
guys. They were great guys. I'm so glad. Um,
I mean, I mean,
yeah, I mean,
I've had bad reviews, and I've had bad reviews from people who sort of, they're coming from a certain point of view, or that you can tell that they have been sort of schooled in films and stuff, so they kind of know what they're talking about. But these four guys who went down to the local multiplex and watched films.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing is that after did I tell you about the Hamlet conversation I had with someone?
No.
These guys kept coming back to like, the script is so bad and blah blah blah. And I spoke to a friend about this, and he was saying, see, he's a theatre guy, so he was saying that the Hamlet is the golden example of how there are no bad scripts, because you've seen very good versions of Hamlet and you've seen very bad versions of Hamlet, but it's always the same words that they're saying. What makes people like or dislike something is something else. It's not the actual script of Hamlet itself. They're picking up on other things. So that made me feel better for a while, and
Yeah.
then I spent a few months showering in bleach. Mm, that also helped.
Well, yeah, because I mean, they attacked the script for no reason at all.
Well,
That was the annoying
I don't
thing
remember
about
what
it.
their reasons were. They did say things, but I don't remember what they were.
I think their reasons came from ignorance, that they didn't know what they were talking about. So at the end of the day,
Yeah.
they attacked the script. Oh, obviously it's a bad script.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, they sounded like they were more used to seeing big budget stuff.
Yeah.
And when you're going the low budget route, you have to make you can't, cars can't blow up, buildings can't fall down, planes can't land even. So you have to find drama and threat inside of other things. Inside,
That's it. I mean, you also have to sort of disguise that stuff.
yes, you do. It's like I did this talk recently, and I was explaining how it's kind of like watchmaking, because when you look at a watch, you just see what time it is, and potentially you look at the make of watch and you go, "Oh, that nice watch." Hey, what you're not paying attention to is the huge number of cogs and wheels behind that face, which are making everything work. And when you're script writing or low budget independent filming, you're hiding all these cogs and wheels from everyone, but you've thought about them hugely. They are extremely important to you. You're watchmaking, but people have to not see that. They just have to see what time it is and the face of the watch. They don't see all those kind of inner workings, and they don't appreciate them because they're hidden out of sight. And that's, I think, an important part of low budget filmmaking. You hide all these things which are making everything work.
Well, I mean, I've recently been watching a lot of Jim Jarmusch films, and he's somebody who actually doesn't care about that. He doesn't need to see a plane landing in another country. His character is just in another country.
Exactly. And I mean, he started off. Is it Permanent Vacation, the first one?
That's right. Yeah.
He started that off getting. He didn't even have complete reels of film. He just had a few odds and ends. So he couldn't tie everything together in the way that films normally tie together. So he's left with, I'll just shoot one scene and then I'll shoot another scene somewhere else, another scene somewhere else. I won't do cutaways because we don't have the film. I've just got these little bits and bobs. And then when putting them all together, he develops that cut to black thing in between scenes in Permanent
Oh yes.
Vacation. And he's only doing the cut to black because he literally can't put these two scenes together because it'll be jarring and weird. So instead of doing that, he just does cut to black, fade in, and we're somewhere else. And that was a technique born out of the restrictions imposed on him rather than him having to. He didn't actually come up with that idea. He's not doing it in the same way that Gaspar Noé is doing it. He's doing it because he can't make it work any other way.
But saying that, he used it a lot in Dead Man.
Well,
There's a
yeah,
lot of fades to black.
yeah. I think he, you find yourself doing something because you're forced into doing it, and then you start thinking, well, no, actually, I kind of like this. This is pretty cool, and things become signature as well, I guess. So yeah, and nothing wrong with a callback to your old stuff.
No,
Was
true.
good. You've seen more Jim Jarmusch than I have these days.
Yes, yes, I
I've only
have.
seen
Yeah.
like three.
What three have you seen?
I've seen Ghost Dog, Way of the Samurai, which I rewatched
Yeah.
recently. I've seen Down by Law a long time ago. Please don't ask me any questions about it. And I thought, oh, what's that one where the people in the hotel, um,
Oh God.
the Elvis stuff,
Oh God.
Japanese
Not
guy
Chunk.
takes photos of his
Oh
hotel room.
bloody hell! I've watched that one recently as well.
It's got that door, that the bellhop who's just swatting flies all the time. Or
Oh God, it's
go and get on IMDb.
I know it's
Find
terrible.
what it's called.
Mystery Train.
Mystery Train, yeah,
Yes,
and
yeah,
Mystery Train, of course. Um,
yes.
I think that's about it. I don't think I've
Okay.
seen any of the others. Dead Man is on my list for sure.
Deadman's good. I remember when it came out, I wasn't that interested, but seeing it recently, it's really good. I like Stranger Than Paradise is very good. It's a big jump up from Permanent Vacation. Permanent Vacation, I would say watch it if you're interested, but if not, give it a miss because it's not great.
Yeah, I watched like the first 20 minutes. I'm not going to say I
Yeah.
saw the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Oh wait, oh Mike, sorry. I've also IMDb'd Mr. Jarmusch here. And I completely forgot that I saw Coffee and Cigarettes as well.
Oh, okay.
I loved
Okay.
Coffee and Cigarettes when it came out.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. I mean, there was a few of the parts I didn't like, but
Yeah, for
that was
sure.
the same with Night on Earth.
Yeah, this I never saw, although I feel like I should.
Night on Earth is really good, but I think it I think most people have a section that they don't like. I
Uh,
mean, I've seen this with sort of reviews and stuff that everybody sort of picks on a different segment that they don't like. So they tend to like three out the four
yeah.
segments that they are.
I didn't know that Jenna Rollins was in it. I'm IMDbing it right now. I knew Beatrice Dahl was in it because,
Hmm.
came out early 90s. Everyone was all about Beatrice Dahl. But
Yes,
yeah, Jenna Rollins, Victoria Snelling.
that's
Interesting.
right. That's
Oh,
right.
and an early role for Giancarlo Esposito as well.
Indeed. I mean, he's worked with a lot of good people. I mean, Only Lovers Left Alive was
Yeah.
really good. I really
Now,
enjoyed
I
that.
have Only Lovers Left Alive on DVD and Blu-ray in the other room, and I still haven't watched it. Don't ask me why I've got it on two formats. Um, yeah, I will get around to watching that. Tom Hiddleston, he's always
Yes.
fun. But what's her face? Tilda Swinton's in that as well.
Tilda Swinton as well,
She's
yes.
gold,
Yeah.
always.
Because she's worked with him since Broken Flowers.
Oh, okay. Whoa, wait a minute. So I've just IMDb'd that as well. John Hurt. I didn't know he was in that.
Yes, he
Oh,
is.
I don't pay attention, do I?
And of course, John Hurt's worked with him since Dead Man. So
Oh, Get Away. Now that I did not
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So I, it's certainly a director to certainly watch because he's always sort of stayed in the low budget realm. His films have never been any
Yeah,
bigger than I'd say about a million.
yeah, yeah. I read. I don't know if you read Cronenberg on Cronenberg, but there's a bit where he talks about having a chat with Oliver Stone, and Oliver Stone saying to him, "How do you feel about being?" I can't remember what he calls him, but he said, how do you feel about being a niche filmmaker, or a basically Oliver Stone is saying, "I make films for I make films for the multiplex, and
Right.
you don't. You deal in low budgets, although Cronenberg's had some fairly big budgets. You deal in low budgets and you deal in select audiences. How do you feel about that?" And Cronenberg talks about how intellectual the guy he's talking to then says that sounds a bit offensive, and Cronenberg's like, no, 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 intellectually I understand completely. And I think that staying within that realm just offers you a lot more freedom to do the things that you want to do. Oliver Stone needs to have meetings and focus groups, and he has to get things to play to everyone. And although he's famously quite a shouty, opinionated guy, he's definitely going to do more bending about how to do things than Jim Jarmusch does. Jim Jarmusch is going to get to have his way a lot more.
Yeah. And it's and it's kind of like what makes him like the unofficial king of the indies.
Yeah,
or the official king of the
Yeah.
Indies. I don't know. I mean,
No, absolutely.
is there a king?
I don't think they will. I mean, you read more and more and more about Cassavetes being the father of
Hmm.
independent film, but he's dead, so he can't be the king. Um,
Yeah, but I mean, what about like the French New Wave? Those were independent.
they were independent. They suffered from infighting amongst each other. Truffaut and Godard having this huge falling out, writing letters to each other, which got published. I don't. Why would you do that? I don't know. Um, but I've actually been watching a fair bit of new wave stuff at the moment recently, and it's a real hit and miss ratio because they're kind of free to do whatever they want to do, and sometimes the
Yeah,
stuff they want to do is a little bit niche, and this is me saying it's a little bit niche as well. I like niche, but sometimes it's particularly difficult. Whereas I guess someone like Jarmusch, I think he's just been getting. I don't think his number one concern is the audience, but I think he thinks about it now more than he probably did with Permanent Vacation and stuff like that.
possibly. I mean, it's
Who knows what's going on?
I think Ghost Dog Way of the Samurai was kind of like his closest to doing like a sellout film
Yeah,
in some sense. I know my girlfriend's a big fan and she doesn't like that film. She feels it's the least Jim Jarmusch
I
film.
think because
But saying that, having seen other crime thrillers and stuff and gangster films, it feels more Jim
yeah,
Jarmusch than anything
absolutely, yeah.
else.
I think the thing that makes Ghost Dog feel different is that it has a non-white central character, and it has this kind of interest in non-white culture, and that's really unique in Jarmusch's canon. Everything is about white guys, pretty much. With a few other things coming in, but like so, Ghost Dog is you've got the soundtrack being done by the RZA, and you've got
Yeah,
Forrest Whitaker in the lead, and his friend is a Haitian, I think, or French,
that's right. Yeah,
in the film, and
yeah,
it deals with cultures that Jarmusch isn't, and he doesn't have to be, but I think that's kind of why it sticks out a little bit for me. One of the nice things I'll say about Ghost Dog in particular is there's one scene about three quarters of the way into the film where you know how each chapter is kind of preceded by a quote
yes.
from the Way of the Samurai book. There's one that talks about the importance.
Well, it's not the. Is it the Way of Samurai or is it the? Oh
It's
no,
not it's not Sun Tzu's Art of War.
no, that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
it's
Yeah.
something else. I forget. I
Okay.
think it's like
No, you're right.
uh,
Is the way it's the honor code of the
yeah,
samurai.
yeah. And one chapter starts with a quote about how you have to pay respect to the next generation, and then what follows is the RZA walking down the street past Forrest Whitaker, and they just nod at each other and walk on. And I thought that was really nice that Jarmusch
Yeah,
does this kind of like, I'm going to give, right now is the Wu Tang Clan's large moment. They've just gone triple platinum 2 years earlier. And I think that was a really nice nod from Jarmusch to a whole other culture. Yeah, that really worked
yeah,
for me.
yeah. But I mean, he's also been known to use musicians a lot in his films
Oh,
anyway.
he uses, yeah, musicians all the time, but always with that kind of like Tom Waits or what's the John Laird or
Yeah,
someone like that, yeah.
yeah.
Always that,
Oh yeah.
like, that gritty
Well,
barroom kinda thing.
that's right. Well, John Laird was in Permanent Vacation as a saxophone player, and then became the lead in Stranger Than Paradise. And that is the thing. If you've seen Stranger Than Paradise and then watch Permanent Vacation, you go, "Why isn't that guy in the lead and the
Mhm.
other bloke isn't?"
Yeah,
Because that's unfortunately that's the one thing that suffers with Permanent Vacation is that the main guy is not interesting at all.
yeah, yeah,
Where it would have been a better film if it had been a sort of a better actor. But then again, it goes back to sort of no budget filmmaking. You have to, work with what you
absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of mileage out of Jim Jarmusch there. I wasn't expecting that.
have. Oh, we get a lot of mileage out of a lot of
Yeah,
subjects.
true. Do you have being that we're talking about screenwriting, and this is
Yeah,
movie heaven, movie hell, after all.
yeah.
Do you have a movie heaven, movie hell for screenwriting? No particular directors, no nothing. Just a kind of like fantastic example of screenwriting, and then potentially terrible example of screenwriting without talking about Ghosts of Mars.
Okay. Well, the script that sort of springs to mind for Movie Heaven, and it was just one of the sort of first scripts I read, was Reservoir Dogs.
Mm,
Because, but I know it's. But the thing was that one of the reasons why I quite liked that is you could read it as like, like a normal story, instead of it being very sort of, with scripts. You get certain scripts where you there's a lot of sort of description about the place and stuff, and it doesn't flow so well. I
yeah,
mean, when you're reading it and this will make a good film, but as a piece of literature to read, it's not that exciting. Yet when but then I love the script to Alien, because that is such a fast read. You read that within an hour,
yeah.
because it's so minimalistic. Yeah, so I mean, those ones I would hold up. What would you pick for Movie
My
Heaven as a
my movie
script?
heaven is always Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think that
Oh,
Raiders of
okay.
the Lost Ark is just a really, really well put together script. Um, it's got everything going on. Like every word that people say is useful and fantastic, and the way everything unfolds is also just gorgeous as well. I just love the way it all works. Like I wrote a piece about it recently about how good the beginning was. But for example, you Matt Groening in The Simpsons, when he designs characters, he wants characters that you can recognize from a silhouette. So all
Yeah.
of the Simpsons and all of the Futurama cast, if you see them just in black, you can recognize who they are. And that way that Indy gets introduced, you don't see him, but there's like something goes off, there's a whip crack, and then he steps in, hat on, he's just like a in shadow. Everything is done in this kind of really simple, pared down way, but it just works so well. It's funny when it needs to be, it's sad when it needs to be, it's exciting when it needs to be. It's just yeah, it's a really great thing.
And the thing is, a great film usually comes from a great script. I mean,
Yeah,
if you've got a bad script, you're going to get a bad
yeah,
film.
yeah, yeah. Although, according to Theatre Guy, there are no bad scripts. But yeah, yeah, he didn't see Three-Headed Shark Attack, so
For a script for Movie Hell,
hard. Right?
it is hard
Well,
because
it's hard
if
because you don't know
it's
why it's hell. Like,
well, it's not that. I would say that I would probably avoid it, because reading a script is, it's time, because it can, some scripts are, as I say, like Alien is a fast read, and some scripts it's a slog.
yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, just on paper, my movie hell is talking head scripts. So scripts where people are just sitting talking to each other, and then you cut to another scene and they're talking, and then there's a lot of description, and then more talking. No one ever does anything. But then you got Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I
Yeah.
loved that film was amazing, and it is just old men sitting in rooms talking to each other.
Yes and no.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. They occasionally some other bits.
Yeah, but I mean, there's tension in there with what
Mhm.
they're talking about, because you're trying to, going back to what you were saying about games, because you're trying to work out who the mole is.
Absolutely. But you're trying to work out so many things. Like even when Gary Oldman goes to see Kathy Bates in it, there's a bit where they're sitting talking together, and they're in between them on the far side of the room. There's a young couple who are who are canoodling,
Mm,
and they're watching. I think Kathy Bates says something like "young love" or whatever.
yeah,
And the
yeah.
first time I saw that film, I remember thinking, "Wait a minute, are they seeing them in the past? Is that them? Are they kind of like remembering what they used to have when they were younger together or something?" And the whole I was going like way, way down into the film and thinking that it was doing a lot of things. I think you're supposed to think that there's something going on there as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I actually really loved that film, and I went to see it with a friend of mine who thought it was really boring, and I'm like, wait a minute, did we just see the same
Mhm,
film?
mhm. Loads of
But
people do
because
because if you don't pay
yeah,
attention, you're gonna miss it. Like that, the ending is silence.
mm,
It's just people. You're on the edge of. Well, if you like the film, you're on the edge of your seat because you can hear someone walking up to where Gary Oldman is, and you're on. You know, you, it's a
Yeah.
knife edge kind of thing. But if you haven't really been following what's going on, you haven't been paying attention to all that talking, that whole final part is just dead to you, I think. Um, so yeah, that doesn't answer your question about does it?
Well, I mean, I've read other people's scripts where, I've been maybe offered it,
Mhm,
and okay, I'll talk about one because the film's been made and I had no involvement with it. But there was a film out there called The Zombie King,
mhm.
and I remember reading the script, and I thought it had a very decent idea, but I thought it was very cliched and very, it didn't do things very
Yeah.
well. The characters in it make a lot of wrong decisions, and I actually wanted to rewrite it,
Mhm.
and it's probably one of the reasons why I didn't get the job. But it was, yeah, I'd say I would put that in my movie hell. I mean, if I'd been given the job to direct
Mhm.
it, I don't know how much leeway I would have got because they had the actors in place already.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And they were looking for somebody who could make this film with very little
Mhm.
money. And I think in their mind, they went with the right choice because they went with a guy whose background was in special effects. I mean, even though this was the first film he was going to direct, he had a background in special effects, and they felt, well, if it's going to be a zombie film, we're going to have a load of zombies, then it's best to have somebody who,
Yeah.
knows something about special effects. But knowing somebody who knows about special effects is fine, but can they tell a good story? And
Yeah,
in my opinion, after seeing the final film, no.
yeah. I always think it's a bit dodgy when again, I'm not casting any aspersions on technicians at all, but when you get a film which is someone's first directorial job, and prior to that, they've just done work in either effects or cinematography or editing, often those films are not good, shall we say.
But then saying that, those technicians may have gotten those jobs because they couldn't get directing. Maybe they
Yeah,
had directed
potentially,
before.
yeah,
Because,
yeah.
I've done cinematography and I've done editing, and I think I can put a film together.
I'm thinking of Resident Evil Part 2. I go straight to Resident Evil Part 2. It's just awful, awful. And I think it's made by either the original film's either editor or DP, I forget. But I think it's definitely the first film they made. It might be the only film they made. And oh, it's just awful. But I mean, that is often the way that they'll, especially for sequels, if they can't get the director back, then they'll get someone who was on the first film, in any capacity, but
Mm,
particularly in either effects, editing, or DP. I don't know why.
yeah. Well, I guess they like a bit of continuity, and also it always comes down to a trust, doesn't
Yeah,
it? Because they want to work with people that they know will be able to sort of deliver the goods, or that
absolutely.
they may have some control over. I don't know,
Yeah.
but it just makes me think about. Are you willing to talk about UA Bowl?
I can talk about Uwe Boll. I don't have much to say, but yeah, yeah, we can
Okay. Well, I
chat.
just want to talk about because you wrote a script for In the Name of the King 3, which they didn't use.
Yeah, yeah. I also wrote, oh, what's it called? Blood Rain 4 and 5 as well. Um,
Okay. Were they scripts they actually
well, no,
used,
because
or?
they never made Blood Rain 4 and 5 in the end, which I think is a
Oh, okay.
shame because those scripts were great. Yeah, the in the Name of the King Part 3 thing was interesting. It was kind of like an amalgamation of a script that I wrote with Gary Otto, who I met donkeys years ago on uh, Citizen Toxic Avenger Part 4. Part 3? Part 4.
Part 4, yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of like, he made this bold connection, and then from that we did Blood Rain 4 and 5, In the Name of the King Part 3. We did another project together as well that I can't remember. Um, but yeah, kind of our script didn't get used, but also kind of it did, I think. I'm not sure about it. I have an associate producer credit. Um, and that's fine with me. Again, I own the film on DVD, on Blu-ray, and I haven't got around to watching it yet.
Oh, okay.
So once I've seen it, I'll be able to make firm words on things. Um, but yeah, Uwe Boll gives a brief, and it's very, very do it like this. There isn't a lot of kind of yeah, just do what you like, and we'll see how it plays. He's like, I want it like this, and so if you get two people working on the same thing, you're gonna end up making very, very similar scripts. Um, then once those scripts were laid out, extra limitations came in. Um, a lot of it had to be set in caves. There had to be more dragon effects. There had to be horses had to be removed from the film for a number of different reasons. And I haven't seen In the Name of the King Part 3 yet, but pay attention for caves, dragons, and an absence of horses. Those are the things that we were working with. Um, but I mean, I know that I just found it a kind of a fun experience, really. Um, he kind of tells you exactly, here are the parameters. It's got to be within these two walls. You can't go beyond them. And then inside of that, kind of have a lot of fun. And that's a kind of nice thing to be doing, really.
Well, I gather you must like it because, I mean, you've, as you said, you've written other scripts
Yeah,
for him as
and
well.
and now there's 12 hours. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, 12 hours is it's kind of like a Taken kind of film. It's a guy who is being forced to do things because if he doesn't do them, then people he cares about will get hurt. I think I can safely say all of that without giving away spoilers or anything.
Is it a bit like that Johnny Depp film?
Which Johnny Depp film? Dead Man?
No.
Fear and Loathing in Las
No.
Vegas. Pirates of
No.
the Caribbean.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's the one where Christopher Walken's got his daughter
Oh,
and he's got to do an assassination for
it's
him,
not in time.
and it's done in real
Yeah,
time.
yeah. It's something about time. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah, except the film is not 12 hours long. But yeah,
Yeah,
you're
it's not shot in real
yeah,
time.
your man does have 12 hours to do all these things that he's been asked to do. So yeah, it's kind of like that. It's kind of a little bit like that, whatever that film was. Christopher Walken's in it.
Oh, it's called Nick of Time.
So it's got a kind of a Nick of Time vibe mixed with what I just said, Taken, kind of to it. All set in Sofia, Bulgaria as well, which is exciting. That was fun. I did a lot of I do probably a little bit more reading about Sofia than I needed to do. But I did a lot of reading about Sofia to get an idea of how big it was, where things were, what was there, that kind of thing. That was yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's good. That's good. And I gather if UA Bowl comes calling that you'll work with him again.
For sure, yeah. I mean, my thing that I keep saying is, I've got there's one script in particular which I've had for years, which is Zombie Express, which I am convinced would make a very fun, low budget film, and I do keep trying to push that one.
Mm.
But the thing is, Uwe Boll works in the world of finance and business, and he needs things to be a certain way. He can't just take in spec scripts and then make them happen. Most of the time, he's working because he's got the rights to a franchise or a computer game or a something, or he's got access to very particular locations or costumes or special effects or something, and he needs to tie the film into what's available to him, which is, I think, a pretty understandable way of working, really. Instead of taking an imaginary script and then finding all the things, you look at what you have
Yeah.
around you and then make a film to fit what you've got available.
Yeah. Though, have you seen Snowpiercer?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Yeah. When I saw Snowpiercer, I was kind of reminded a bit of Zombie Express.
Dude, you've seen a million films and been reminded of Zombie
Well,
because
yeah, but it was the same idea of working from the back and
and heading all the way to the front of the train. Yeah, yeah, and like I think I'm a big fan of train movies. So if you put a train in your movie and Ben will watch it, that's a fact. Um,
oh, so you must love Runaway Train then.
I don't love Runaway Train.
No?
No, I don't. My favorite train movie is Trans-Siberian. I'll go on record saying that. Trans-Siberian, closely followed by Silver Streak.
Okay. Why? What do you like about Runaway Train?
No, I don't know. Something about it, it's just so bombastic and loud, and I don't know. It's just not my favorite. John Boyd and Eric Roberts as well. Don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, it works right. It's Andrei Konchalovsky, right?
that's right. I mean, though, if Akira Kurosawa had made it, do you think? Well, it would have been a lot
It would have
different
been
of a
it would have
film,
been so different.
it was based on his script.
Yes, it is. Yes. Although, like, was it rewritten? It must have been rewritten.
Must have
Second,
been.
I'm gonna look this one up right now. So, yeah, it's his story, but it's not his script. So who wrote the script? Oh, look at these guys. I don't know how to pronounce their names. Oh,
Oh,
no,
okay.
wait. Georgi Milicevic, Paul Zindel, and Ed Bunker, who's Mr. Blue in Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, right.
Yeah, worked away on it. And it's based on a screenplay by Kurosawa, and the story was from two other guys, Ryozo Kikushima and Hideo Oguni.
Which were probably the writers who wrote with Akira Kurosawa originally, because he always worked with a group of script
You
writers.
get this quite a lot. There's I don't know if you know, there's a Buñuel retrospective on at the ICA at the moment, and they had Jean-Claude Carrière come in for a Q&A after one of the films, and Jean-Claude Carrière wrote all of Buñuel's French comedies, or everything from like the Milky Way onwards or Viridiana onwards, and now I'm not sure of myself. But yeah, Buñuel had this guy to bounce ideas off, and so he's just sitting there throwing out ideas, and Jean-Claude Carrière is actually the guy putting pen to paper and making everything work nicely.
But was it Brunel who's getting like the accolades for it though?
Yeah, I think if you watch a Buñuel film, you don't focus on the script. I think you're paying
Right.
attention to other things. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone out there who's going to correct me on this. But I think yeah, it's like a Michael Bay film. You don't go to a Michael Bay film for the script. You go there for something else.
Yeah, and there's been like a whole team of script writers working on that.
Hells, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
uh, I think that's a good place to
You
end it.
sure?
I'm
You don't have
sure
any
because
final questions?
well, okay, I have a final question for
Yep.
you. Um, so for anybody thinking about doing script
Yep.
writing out there, what would your advice be?
My advice would be to write a script, um, and then submit it to stuff, and then write another script, and submit it to stuff as well. I wouldn't. I meet a lot of people who say, "Yeah, I've got a script that I want to write, um, but I'm not quite ready yet." And I think, what's that about? Because you're going to be the same person tomorrow. I don't know what you think is going to happen. Think that you're going to think about writing for long enough, then you're going to be amazing. That's just not the case. It's like if you wanted to get into pottery and you thought, well, what I'm going to do is think about pottery for 5 years before actually throwing any clay at the wheel. And then I'm going to be amazing. But it doesn't work like that. You have to just get your hands dirty and get it done. So just get in there, write something, submit it. I am not a big fan of feedback sessions, um, especially if you got these kind of like arenas where people can submit scripts specifically for feedback, or competitions which are aimed at feedback. I I know that people are going to disagree with this, but I think they're a huge waste of time, because what you're getting is feedback from other writers. And if you're a screenwriter and you're writing scripts, you are not writing for other writers. You're writing for directors and producers, and they have a different set of requirements. Writers look at stuff as a writer, and they're unable to do anything else. Um, yeah, so I'd write stuff, submit it, write another thing, submit it, write another thing, submit it. Obviously, do rewriting as well, and I would change forms, write long and short, write different genres. Don't just go in for screenwriting either. Write other things as well.
And also, I'd say read scripts.
Oh yeah, read scripts, read everything. Read a lot of things. and yeah, do stuff that you wouldn't normally do as well, because you're going to be writing films about people who do things that you've never done before, and you're going to need a frame of reference for this. Um, so you need to watch movies that you don't like, and you need to go places that you don't normally go, and you have to, yeah, live a life. Go out there, live a life, chop a tree down, bone a fish.
That's it. Go and visit some
Yeah,
caves, find some
yeah,
dragons, but without
yeah.
horses.
You make sure there are no horses anywhere around whatsoever.
Or any
Yeah,
coconuts.
yeah, yeah, yeah. See, that would have fixed it. You can just
Yes. Patsy?
maybe number 4. That could be done.
Return the King.
Yeah,
The Return of
yeah.
Patsy.
I could fly. We'll see. I've got Uwe on speed dial. I'll run by him.
Oh, excellent.
Ah.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking
No,
to
thanks
us,
very much.
talking to me.
No, sorry for any background noise.
That's all
I,
right. Oh no, we're still recording.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
This is me
I
wrapping
know.
down. We'll end it in our customary manner. Where can people find your work?
I guess the best place to go is my Look Think Films Vimeo page. I mean, that's me, all my stuff that I write for me. And like you were saying, if I write for me, I've got different rules. There isn't a client. There's no one else. So I go a bit wacky. Um, and yeah, check it out on Vimeo. I'm on Twitter. I don't really interact with people on Twitter. I'm old. Don't really know how it works. But yeah, check out the old Look Think Films Vimeo page. That's where I'd start.
And the
And the
website.
website. Although I would go to the Vimeo page, it's more entertaining. But go to the website to work out what the hell's going on. Yeah.
I would also recommend checking out Ben's unusual film reviews, where where he talks about everything else but the
What
film.
are you doing, Ben? Is what I often get when people are like, I read a review you wrote the other day. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? I don't understand. What's happening? What's going on? Yeah, I love that. It's a lot of fun. That's just keeping in practice, keeping. I do. You got to keep writing, and you got to keep thinking of different stuff, and yeah, that's an exercise in keeping going and writing about different things.
And you can find my work, as always, at independentrunnings.com. While you're there, check out Monologue Triptych, which is Primero, Segundo, Tercero. Also, check out Blood and
Oh
Roses,
yeah.
all written by Ben Woodiwiss.
Yep.
And hopefully we'll just to say that we're collaborating on another script at the moment, so fingers crossed that's all going to work
Yep.
out.
Give me a few days of no one asking me to do stuff, and that'll be done.
Well, there's no pressure because I still got Modern Love to
Okay,
finish.
cool. Okay, cool. But
Yeah,
I'd like to get it done anyway.
yeah. And yes, and you can find the podcast on iTunes. We're on Stitcher, we're on Mixcloud, and we're on YouTube. And you can find us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for Movie Heaven, Movie Hell. So it just leaves me to say thank you again, Ben, for coming on and talking about script writing and other stuff.
Pleasure being here. Lovely talking to you.
And yes, we'll see you in the next episode of Movie Heaven, Movie Hell.
Wait, where's the live music? Where end of the show? Where are the credits running? I thought we got some music running.
No, I'll put that in next afterwards.
I thought you had a live band playing. So disappointed.
Well, tell the truth, the music is an unused track from Primero.
No, that's Primero.
It would have been, yes.
Damn. Yeah. Okay. Good choice. Good choice. I like the replacement.